anybody off. Is that kind of right? Anything else to add on Media City just now? I think that's good. Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Mahago, are you looking for the Engaged Journalism Database? Is that the one that you're looking for? Yeah, okay. I'll put that in a chat in a minute. Can I just ask, I can't tell whether Catherine's here or not. Catherine, are you there? And if you are, can you say hello to me? She
Hello.
is! Hi, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone's, I don't know if you can see the chat because we don't normally use Blackboard Collaborate, do we, Catherine? We're normally on Teams. So you're demonstrating your digital ambidexterity here. So welcome. It's so lovely to have you with us. Thank you for spending some time with us. I'm going to just share your quick slides, if that's okay, Catherine, because it's probably as quick and easy if I do it. But yes, everybody, we're very, very lucky to have Catherine just say a quick hello to us today. Let me just go back to the beginning of these slides. Let's make sure I'm not on the wrong one. Always helps. So we're really lucky to have Catherine with us. She works for the Local in Sweden. So am I right in thinking you're buzzing over from there today? What we've been looking at today is really thinking about the business model of all sorts of different media, from Kraut Reporter, Media City, Bureau Local, and others. And we're really trying to see that connection between understanding audiences and then understanding how we make money from them. So we're trying to make that connection between the two things. But if you would start us off while I faff about, Catherine, just what can you tell us about the Local and how it started, etc., etc.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for inviting me today. It's nice to chat to everyone. So the Local, for people who don't know it, it's a newsroom across Europe. So we're in 9 countries at the moment, not in the UK. And we started out in Sweden. It was set up by 2 British immigrants in Sweden who just realized that they were learning the language, getting to know people, but they were really struggling to understand what was actually happening to kind of integrate. So it started out as one guy, our former CEO, sending out an email to people in his Swedish class where, just to practice his Swedish skills, he started translating some of the main stories in the news and emailing it around. And it kind of grew and grew. People forwarded it on, and he realized there was a need for it. There was an audience there. And now we're in 9 countries. We've got 7 million readers every month on average, all still coming to us for that explanation, understanding the news in English of the country that they've moved to. And I think at the end of 2017, we started to become a membership organization. So for the first time, we asked people to pay to join us. It was €5 a month, or the local equivalent. And just over the past year, the membership really shot up during coronavirus. That was a time when people really needed to understand what was going on, so that we've now reached over 40,000 paying members, which that was the goal we had set ourselves initially for the end of this year, 2022, because 40,000 members means that membership is our top revenue source, which was a real milestone for us to really be working for our readers. It's been very exciting. Kind of when I started, we didn't charge at all, so it means you're working more for advertisers, which means chasing clicks and always chasing traffic, and ultimately maybe not writing the stories that our audience want. So I'll just go through these slides to give a bit more of an introduction to how we work. So this one shows kind of we have this niche community which just wasn't getting served that well by the existing news brands in the country. So some people would be looking for understanding the local news. They want tips, maybe places to go, things that come naturally to locals, people who've grown up there. It could be everything from how to file your taxes to pensions, practical stuff, but also travel in their country, and local know-how, which could be everything from kind of food and culture. So even things like how to meet people, jobs as well, like where to find work, how to network, how to negotiate pay rises, which industries are hiring. And local events is on here. As part of membership, we hope to have a lot of online events, or in-person events rather, but that's kind of been stalled from COVID. So yeah, we understand what they need, because pretty much all of our staff, most of us are foreigners in the country. So I'm British living in Sweden, and I've lived in Germany and Italy before. Some of our staff are local, but they've mostly lived abroad. We have a quite international mindset. So we offer our 9 edition. We've got members get events and offers. So we try to say it's more than just the news. There's also a job site, which is specifically English language jobs. And then our news revolves around explaining the top stories, the things that are the headlines that day, but also things that won't be accessible if you're just, say, Google translating the Swedish news sites. That isn't what we do, because we also have to add the context. We'd kind of, like, these are examples from our French site. So the real rules for driving in France is one example, things that people take for granted. And we notice that a lot in political news as well. Certainly in Sweden, the political news is kind of written for people who already know who all the characters are, the parties, how the system works. And we really have to explain that in every article. And then all the way down to tips and just what to do with your kids, like where to take them in summer. Things like in Sweden, we have really long holidays. Like, what do people actually fill 8 weeks off in the summer with? So yeah, we're trying to meet those needs that are going unmet by the local news. And membership really helps us with that. And as Lanza, you've already been talking about engaged journalism, and that's really been the core of our membership, because we do think that we know quite well. We have quite good instincts for what our readers want, because we've been in those situations and we've been writing for them for such a long time. But you never kind of know what you're missing. And the international community is so diverse. It's not just native English speakers, it's all kinds of people who've moved for all kinds of reasons. So we're always trying to start conversations with our readers. This is just some examples we speak to them about. This top one, kind of readers' views, getting their voices across when they've got something to say on national debates, and that might not be getting covered in the national media. Finding out what readers think of Sweden's coronavirus strategy at the moment has been a big thing. More light-hearted topics and sharing readers' knowledge with each other, so guides to getting through the darkness, and really focusing on how our readers are affected by the local news stories. So whether that's kind of following elections back home while you're abroad, or kind of how Christmas was disrupted by the pandemic. So we're always starting conversations with readers. It's often through reader surveys, but also in our newsletters, we encourage them to get in touch. We keep a very close eye on social media to see what questions are coming up there, and respond to them to find what they want to know and what they need from us. And transparency as well has been really key for that in membership. It's gotten a bit funny, but especially during the coronavirus, we had, I think 12 or 13,000 members at the start of last year. And then when the pandemic came, it really hit our advertising revenue. I think it fell a lot. It was about 70% of a drop, I think, in the first month. And we just went out and told our readers and our members that, and we said that we needed that support. We needed them to pay in order for us to be around. And it's always very nerve-wracking asking people that. You don't want to be bugging people for money. But we do really try to constantly explain why we need the money, what we are doing for them. We had these banners going on all our articles explaining life has changed and what we were doing to try and help them during the coronavirus crisis and also beyond that. And I think that transparency really helped as the kind of surge in membership showed. But also we always come back to our readers when we speak to them. We show them how we've used their articles. So if we write an article based on a reader suggestion, we'll say this came from this reader. We'll reply to the individual and thank them. And we've been updating people who joined during the coronavirus, letting them know that that really did help and they're part of this community. And yeah, so this is our philosophy for membership. It's when the readers are engaged, they'll be in it for the long run. So they'll get involved maybe at an early stage before they pay, if that's emailing us. Quite often people will email us with a question, even if they're not a member, so they don't have access, but they'll often say, I don't know who else to contact at this point. Maybe they can't get through to authorities or they've got different information. These quite specific questions that affect foreigners in our countries. So they get involved and we try to respond to that and build a relationship. And then they can feel a sense of ownership when they can see that we are responding to feedback. And I should say that it's also responding to negative feedback. If people criticize the paywall or say this is important information, it shouldn't be behind a paywall, we'll explain why we need to do that. Or if people criticize a choice that we've made, it doesn't mean they don't override it, but we'll always listen to that and bear it in mind and try to explain and respond depending on what the issue is, so that we can tweak our priorities and focus on what is best for our engaged audience. They do feel that sense of ownership, and that leads to hopefully loyalty. And since having membership as our key revenue stream, we've noticed a lot more readers getting more and more involved in the comment sections. Previously, that was something we struggled with a lot as a small brand. We didn't have time to moderate. And now actually our engaged members will kind of join in and make the conversations much richer. They will answer questions from other readers, or if people are questioning why we have a paywall or asking someone to send the article for free or even something like that, then our engaged readers will often reply to that and explain. They're not funded by the government. They're not going to be able to continue to write if we don't support them. Yeah, so this is a really nice comment reader to finish with, that I really like it when they kind of give the feedback that shows it's worked. So she was happy to have access to the articles and the information, feeling updated and informed in her new country, and really feeling like part of a community and being involved. I think that's been the key thing to us, is in involving the readers. And although it's still quite a lot of people, it's much easier to do that now. We know that we're working for these 40,000 people, and that's much easier than when we're working for all of 7 million readers, and trying to maximize traffic as much as possible, instead of trying to write something that will get as much as many page views as possible. That's less valuable to us than if we can write an article that maybe only 50 people will read, but it will have a real impact on their life if they're our paying members. Yeah, so that's a kind of summary of what.
Oh my goodness, that's so interesting, Catherine. Thank you so much. But what an incredible 12 months. If you have, in effect, at the local, pivoted in 12 months from being 7 million readers being the focus and an advertising-based model, to an extraordinary growth. The first one, obviously, everybody, please start asking your questions or putting your hands up in the chat. But while we wait for those to come through, I'll ask the obvious one. How on earth have you managed to go from 12,000 paying readers to 40,000 paying readers in the space of 12 months. That's incredible. Congratulations.
Thanks. I think we definitely weren't expecting it to increase that much. We obviously hoped people would understand. I think it's probably two things. I think in some ways the coronavirus has obviously been terrible for all of us as individuals and for the whole industry, but it did mean that our kind of community of readers all needed information on this one specific topic, so we could be really focused, whereas previously we do have very different groups. You've got kind of parents, people who've moved for love, people who've moved for work or studies, people who've come from all different countries. So with a really small team, it's hard to cover that. But then with the coronavirus, that was everyone's top concern, and we could focus on covering that for people. And also international residents were affected in quite a specific way. If you're following UK news at the moment, something I've noticed a lot is that discussion on travel overseas is often talked about as holidays, whereas for our readers, that's being reunited with your family. Maybe something I'm working on at the moment is speaking with international residents who've had a baby during the past year and it's not been able to meet any of their family. So they had very specific needs that a lot of people weren't fulfilling, and some of our countries, even the governments, weren't providing their information as up to date in English. And the second thing is, I think there were possibly quite a lot of people who were maybe at that point where they're debating becoming a member. Maybe they were reading it regularly but not sure whether to buy membership, maybe just never had their card details ready or just had never got round to it. So I think having that kind of crisis point where we just chose that point to really explain that we needed them to join now in order to have a future. And luckily there were obviously enough people who were ready at that point to take the leap.
That's amazing. And so would you say that those 40,000 paying members is almost making as much money for you now as what in effect was the 70% drop in the advertising? Is it similar kind of income now?
I don't have the exact figures, but I know that now advertising has been starting to recover. It was mostly last spring it was badly hit, but even now membership is now our top revenue source, which is great. That's where we wanted to go. And I think something that's important to note about membership schemes is it doesn't have to be either or. You don't have to pick reader revenue or advertiser revenue. I don't know so much about the advertising side, but my impression is that having good membership can actually benefit advertising, because you can go for clients who are also focused on your specific audience. And if you're doing native content, which we do a lot of, it means that's going to be relevant to your readers. So I think it can feed into each other. So it doesn't have to be purely membership and purely reader revenue. It's always good to have those different pillars.
Brilliant. And in terms of, again, expanding the how question, how has it changed the way that you've had to do your job, or the team has had to reorganize itself, or different skill sets? Kind of how do you think that's all played out?
I think we spend a lot more time on emails now. We get a lot of direct emails from readers, which in some ways it feels like more work, because we're not just writing the articles, sending them out there and just seeing how well they do. We're always responding to feedback. So that's something we're working on, is building that into the work process and not just feeling overwhelmed. But again, that can kind of become circular. So if a reader emails me, if I've written an article about travel rules or something and they ask about their specific situation, we always know that if someone has a question, probably other people have it too. So I can reply to them and then put that into an article and know that that will probably be useful. So it means that everything works more as a loop, which is, it's quite handy. We're not always looking out for new stories all the time. We're writing something, seeing what the feedback is, and then writing new things maybe based on that.
Yeah, fantastic. Margot, do you want to just quickly make your comment?
Sorry, what, are you waiting for me to talk?
Yes, go on. You might as well ask your question directly to Catherine.
Yeah. No, it was just before what you said. I was just asking and saying it is probably way more pleasing and feeling good to feel that your revenues are from the public or public based than from like the ads. I mean, in more in a ethically or philosophic point of view.
Yeah, definitely both. I mean, it's nice to know kind of who we're working for, as well, especially for me being part of the international community. I feel quite really happy about that. It's been yeah, although in some ways it's been a lot more work, I definitely prefer working this way, and it's less fickle if you know those people. An advertiser might change what they want from one way to the next.
Thank you so much. And then Karuk, I think you've got a question. The pregnant pause. Karuk's asked, do you consider your content to be more orientated towards local people or international readers interested in one country's news? Kind of, I guess, broadening that out, Catherine, just if I may, how do you know your audience, if that makes sense? How do you find out who they are and understand what they're interested in?
We have a few different ways. I'm kind of always working to improve that. So we do surveys of people who sign up, and we use things like Google Analytics. I think one thing with a membership that surprised us, we've always seen it primarily as being for foreign residents of our countries. So yeah, people who weren't born in the country that they're living in, people who've moved there relatively recently and probably don't speak the language. And we could always see a lot of traffic on the site, especially from America being such a big country, it showed up. And I think we had the assumption that those weren't very loyal readers, that they maybe just were one-off readers who came for one quirky story that got onto Reddit or something. And since starting membership, we realized that we have quite a lot of readers who just have a really strong connection to the country, even if they don't live there. There's a lot of people who did study abroad years in France or Spain or Italy. That's quite common, or who are working now but dreaming of retiring there and like to keep up with it. A lot of people with Swedish ancestry living in America who like to keep up with what's going on. So I wouldn't say they're our primary audience. We do a lot of stuff that's for the people living in the country, so practical advice, but we're bearing them in mind as well. And yeah, I mean, personally, I've been quite surprised that so many of them are loyal readers. And that's also quite motivating, knowing there are people on the other side of the world who don't have immediate plans to move here, but they're still really interested in keeping closely up to date with what's going on here.
No, it's amazing what access to global audiences you have, and how you have to keep that in mind. But I'm very respectful of your diary, Catherine. So thank you so much. I've just got one last question, which is again probably the obvious one. But given the absolutely extraordinary growth in membership this year, the obvious question really is, what's next? What are the priority areas, do you think, moving forward for the local?
We want to keep growing and have more readers. We definitely want to make sure that the people who joined over the past year stay with us. At the moment, we have quite a low churn rate, so high renewals. But we'll have to see how that works after coronavirus, because like I said, there are lots of different priorities and user needs. So at the moment, we're grappling with how to make sure we've understood these people. At the moment, what they want is pandemic news, but hopefully this will be over at some point, and we need to keep being just as essential. Yeah, and then it's our goal to expand to more countries in Europe. We quite often get people emailing asking us to set up in the Netherlands or Belgium or Portugal. At the moment, it's a little bit strange, I think personally, to be in 9 countries that don't have an obvious link between them. So we would like to cover, first of all, the rest of Europe, and then, who knows, just keep growing and keep the readers that we have as well.
It's really exciting to think, because you are in effect the voice of the expat community, you know, in these different areas. In some ways, that really has got potential to scale, hasn't it? Because it's a model now that can replicate. But no doubt, as we'll continue working together, we'll be coming across all sorts of barriers to that. But everybody, I'm sure you'll join me in saying a huge thank you to Catherine for finding time for us this afternoon, and we'll thank you a million times over. Mille merci, as all these wonderful French people will say. Have a lovely afternoon, Catherine. Thanks ever so much. Speak to you soon. Bye. And as we leave Catherine in peace, I will just resume. I think that really hopefully consolidated today for you in terms of thinking about this connection between audiences and revenues. But I hope you picked up on the main theme there, that COVID annihilated advertising, a 70% drop in a matter of weeks for them. And luckily, I think they were far enough down that engagement funnel that they could take that leap to move towards the membership model, to think about how they could convert those readers into loyal readers. How did they do that? Loads of connecting the loop between content, audiences, conversations, dissatisfaction, needs, particularly accentuated through what was going on in COVID. And now that they've gone from 13,000 paying members to 40,000 paying members, that now that has actually become their best revenue stream. But as Catherine said, not one thing in isolation. It's thinking about how these mix together. Has anybody got any questions for me based on that? But I hope you found that useful and interesting. Has anybody got any questions or anything they didn't understand from what Catherine talked about? There's another link there for you, but hopefully that was reasonably clear. In terms of your exam, the essay is really about this. What is the potential around direct pay models? And needless to offer this to you, but I think The Local would be an excellent case study. So feel free to watch this video again. It's my understanding that we are kind of coming towards the end of this session. We've covered an awful lot today, and I don't really want to kind of bombard you with any more information just because we have to. I'll just quickly draw things together with this final few points to say, you know, when we talk about engaged journalism, we're really thinking about how do we take people who are involved in the conversation with us, who we know their needs and we know what they want, and how do we connect that for them becoming paying members. Catherine talked about understanding their niche. Now, their niche is all about saying there's English-speaking communities trying to live either in Sweden or Belgium or France, and needing to navigate the systems, the bureaucracy, but also trying to make sense of local traditions and events and things that go on. So they've really understood their niche. And then what they're doing is encouraging the translation of that into this non-monetary support. So emailing you ideas about stories, commenting, helping explain to other people why you need to pay for the content. And that's what we mean by this reciprocity or non-monetary exchange. So, that is what this engaged journalism is all about. And then we have to start thinking, how do we translate that relationship with the audience into something that can become a paid relationship? And as I've said, there's not a lot of research yet around pricing, but you can see that something around the kind of €3 to €5 a month is quite typical, and something that is a bit more sustainable. And then moving forward, as Catherine said, it's all about saying, can we now make sure that now that we've harnessed the opportunity of what was presented to us with COVID, a really rare opportunity to convert them into paying readers, can we keep that going? What do we need to offer in terms of products and services to make sure that those readers are going to stay with us? So just to consolidate this for 5 minutes, another case study that is really worth you having a think about is Zetland. Now, this is a Dutch case, so not across the whole of Europe, but just based in the Netherlands. I'm just having a look to see if I can find the website for you. And you'll find, here we are. So this is another one that would make a good case study for you if you need it for your exam. So the local and the Zetland would both be excellent examples. But the one thing that they talk about at the Zetland is really homing in on this. What do we need to do to make people spend time and money on journalism? So it's like the why. Why are they going to spend money? And if we can understand that, then we can start to really understand this transition to direct pay. And their starting point at the Zetland was very much to say, news does not equal understanding. There needs to be more things that we do to actually help people understand news. And that is where the value add can really come into play. So that's what brings them to the site. Why do they join Zetland? Because of a promise of reflection, perspectives, insights, seeking where solutions might lie, and never wasting people's attention, because we know that attention is one of the most rare resources of our time. So really understanding that is important. So they've developed a whole series of content offerings. They offer the first one, which is general interest news. Then they offer synthesis, so explanatory stories on issues of ongoing importance. They do In the Right Context, which is solution-orientated stories. And then finally, investigative or surprising stories. So they sort their content around those 4 main types. And I think what's interesting is they have seen a huge growth for them through COVID into the audio marketplace. So just like Puma Podcast is the world is listening, Zetland is almost saying to itself, why are we even bothering with the online digital written? Because most people want to consume our product through audio. But the reason why they are still doing text is that they're finding that that's quite a good way to structure almost the piece and then record it for audio. They're doing a lot of research around which voices work well, and really looking at the production elements of audio, and how much the content is listened to from start to finish. So really a big part of their offering. And then, as I threatened, to bring the correspondent again, but the one thing that the Zetland really learned, and actually probably something the local could learn, is this notion of where do you put the barrier for the payment. And what the correspondent and Zetland have learned is that actually allowing people to read stories that they share on social media is a really great way of getting people to move down the funnel. So what Zetland and the correspondent let you do is, even if the story is behind the paywall, if you share that with a friend, your friend can read the whole article and access the article. But what they would then see is be offered other content, and they won't be able to see that content unless they start paying. So it's almost using your content for the awareness part in the tactic that it will move people down through the engagement funnel. So it's a quite important strategy in terms of balancing free content and membership. And just to say, you know, I've been working on this for a long time now, but if you look at these 6 areas, when we look at membership models or direct pay, these, I created this framework called Active, but I think it's really important we look at the audience, like who are the audience, what segmentation, what funneling are we doing, and how does that all work? The content, how do we differentiate that content? So which bits are freely available, which are able to be shared, which are premium? So how do we differentiate the content, and how do we analyze the performance of the content in order to convert that into audience and members? The trust is something that Catherine mentioned, but it's really important. What are you doing that is actually creating that trust? So where does that happen? How does it happen? What is the give back to the audience? And how are you doing this in a transparent way? Zetland even talk about radical transparency in their strategies. And that is almost saying we are so transparent that, you know, you need to and can criticize us for that openly. So this like radical transparency is really important. We then know that it's really important for your members to understand your ideals. So this is where the vision and the mission comes in, but ideals are almost like, how do you see a better world? And in what way is the media business model actually connected with that? So how are you showing empathy and insights about who you are, what you stand for, and what your ideals are? Then the last 2 things, the next one is values. So how do you differentiate your values, and how do you motivate your audience through branding and messaging? And finally, what are the engagement touch points? Catherine talked about Facebook groups. She talked about Twitter debates. She talked about all sorts of different emails and different touch points she can have. And they also run their newsletters. So where is that engagement happening, and in what ways, and through which channels? So those are really like the building blocks of direct revenues and how to make it happen. And I'm really hoping that Catherine and the journey that the local has gone through has helped you understand that. Okay, so it's not 6:15 by any stretch, but I think that's ample information for today, in my opinion. There's still all the reading that is associated with the membership puzzle, which is a huge resource available online, and the link is connected into the documents. So if anybody has encore des forces, you know, really you can use the time to explore the Zetland, to finish off the revenue model if you haven't already on your templates. But more than anything, I think time to just let all that distill and sink in about what Catherine's talked about, and explore a little bit of the membership puzzle is ample for you to do for the rest of today. Has anybody got any questions or comments, reflections on what we've gone through today? Because I do feel like we've had an extremely busy day. Okay, fantastic, Diane. Thank you for that reassurance. All clear, Nicola, great. Fantastic. Well, I hope you've enjoyed. I promise this was by far the most intense day of new content. We'll start to have a bit more fun tomorrow in terms of using a little bit of design thinking and kind of finishing off a little bit on our templates tomorrow, but I promise nowhere near as hard as today. Well done. Je suis super fière. You did really, really well with Catherine, and I'm genuinely hope you found that interesting. So, ça reste à dire bonne soirée, courage. Yeah, have a rest, and I will see you all tomorrow morning at 10:30 a.m. tomorrow. Okay, brilliant. Well done, everybody. Bravo, bravo. Félicitations.
Thank you so much. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, everyone. Well done. I'm going to go and have a gin and tonic.
Good decisions. See you.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.